In the previous video, we discussed the meaning of input and output. Now we are getting to the next term. In this video, we are going to explain what's processing in terms of computer programming. We are going to show you how to analyze a problem, and the tool you are going to use for that is an IPO table. Then we'll show you how to use that IPO table to write pseudocode, and from your pseudocode, how to write scratch code. In your notes on page 10, you will see some definitions as well of input and output of a program. Now we get to the next part. We are going to write basic programs. So the actual usability of computer programs is to do calculations. They can do calculations and process data quickly and accurately. So that is what we are trying to do in this course. We want to learn how to program, how to write instructions to the computer to process data, do calculations. So now we get to the part where computers usually receive input, process the input, so do calculations, and then give us the answer to a certain calculation, and that answer we then call the output of the program. So short diagram just to show you input, processing, output. Those are the steps we're going to follow. The example we're going to use is the one of costOfTickets. So here, let's read the whole problem statement. So there's a concert, and we are selling tickets. The price of a ticket is 200 Rand. You need a program that will read the name of the student as well as the number of tickets he or she wants to buy. So that name, the name of the student, and the number of tickets, that will be the input to the program. The user needs to tell you, this is my name, this is how many tickets I want. What must the computer do? It must work out the amount to be paid and then display that result. So the result means the amount of money. Appropriate message means it must give something that is a nice sentence. Katlege, you need to pay 600 Rand. You're not just going to say, pay 600 or 600 alone. You also want to display the name of the person and a nice message so the person can see exactly what is the result. So the result to be displayed is the output of the program. So now where do you start when you have to write a program like this? This is a very simple calculation, but I'm using this simple calculation to show you some techniques. And then as we go along, the calculations will become more difficult, but then you are comfortable with this technique of how to analyze a problem. So if you cannot give the answer to a problem like this, if I tell you the person's name is Katlego and he wants to buy 5 tickets and you do not know how to calculate that amount that he must pay, then you cannot write the program. So that's why you first need to do mathematics and know the mathematics calculations before you can come and tell the computer how to do the calculation. So what we are going to use is a diagram. We call it the input processing output table, or then for short, IPO table. This table has 3 columns, and we always start with the last column. The first step in designing any program is to say, what is the result? What do I need to calculate and or display? So in this case, we know we want to display 2 things. First, the name of the student. Second, the total cost of the tickets. So there's the name, Katlego, and there's the amount, 600 Rand. So now you can immediately, as part of your output IPO table, say, what is my output? I can only get that name, Katlego, if it is inside of a variable. That's the only way I can tell the computer to display that name, which was entered on the keyboard. So Katlego must be inside a variable. So I will need a variable S name. That value of 600 Rand, I can only display the 600 Rand if somewhere in my program I have a variable which contains that result. So that result goes to a variable or total cost. So before writing any code, I must plan and see those two things will be my output. Now I go for step 2, to the beginning of the table. So now I'm going to see step 2. What values must I use? So this is sort of fixed values. I don't have to ask the user for this. I know that the cost is 200 Rand. That's what they told me. So I can assume, or I can just use that value of 200 in my program. Step 3. What information do you need? So what must come from the keyboard? What are you going to ask the user? You're going to ask him what is the name of the student. You're also going to ask how many tickets did you buy? In this problem statement, you were told, because it's now still the beginning of programming, you are not yet so comfortable with it. So in this problem statement, we told you the name and the number is the input. But as we go on, nobody's going to tell you what is the input. You need to read the problem statement and determine for yourself what is the input. So in this case, what can be typed on the keyboard? The name and the number. So there is my S name. It's the same as the output. So that what I'm going to input, I'm also just going to output as it is. But now also the number of tickets is going to be input. So I can already from there, I can now immediately complete that part of my IPO table. Just take note again, because it is a string, the name that I'm going to enter is a string, it will contain letters. I'm putting an S in front of the name. And because the number of tickets, you can only buy 10 or 20 or 50, not 2.5 tickets. So it must be an integer value. We're just reminding ourselves of what type of data will be stored in that variable. Now comes the last step. You need to first determine how will you calculate this amount. If you do not know what to add or divide or subtract or multiply, how will you be able to tell the computer how to do it? So to help you, you use a test value. Test value, I also sometimes say use a pretend value. So pretend that the person entered here for number of tickets. Pretend he entered 3. So you pretend that I num tickets is 3. And now how will you calculate the answer? So now I'm giving you a pocket calculator and a pen and a paper, and you're back in the math class, and how will you calculate it? So obviously you're going to say 3 multiplied by that 200 will give me 600. Okay, so that is now a formula. You can say it's a formula. It also looks like an equation. In math, you learned about equations, but in this case, we call it an assignment statement. So, because we are working with programming and we always want answers of calculations to go into variables so that we store the answer somewhere. So, in programming, we call it an assignment statement. So, this part on the right, we are going to show how to do this calculation. Oh, I must take that number of tickets, because that 3, I pretended I know the number of tickets. And then I take the 3 multiplied by 200, but now I must write it in general as a formula. So now that 3 is actually the number of tickets. I multiply by 200. When I did it, I got the answer 600. But now I must tell the computer, look, go and save that 600 into a variable called our cost. So I'm assigning the result of the calculation to the variable our cost. And that is actually then your total calculation. Only one processing statement. Now from this IPO table, you can now create an algorithm. So in pseudocode. So here's your pseudocode now. The normal story, when the user clicks the green flag and we show an end. The two prompts, so two input statements. What's your name? Enter S name. How many tickets do you want to buy? Enter the number of tickets. Both of those are your input. One processing statement where you're going to say number of tickets, that what came as input, multiplied by 200, put it into our total cost. One output statement, display, first show me the name, then also show me these exact words, you need to pay R. Then also show me the content of the variable called our cost, that what our total cost, that what you calculated here. So that is called your output. After this, you can now use your pseudocode to write the code blocks of scratch. Remember, every one statement here will become a certain code block. There's your input, two input statements, your processing, your output. And on the screen, this is what you will see. A speech bubble, and it will say, Katlego, you need to pay 600. That Katlego comes from the content of the variable S name. That 600 value will come from the content of the variable or total cost. Make very sure that you are able to use the blocks, the operator blocks, to stack these two calculations, and also the join blocks, because here you need to create three or to concatenate. Did you know that word? Concatenate. That means to place together, to put together three different values. The S name, those words that you want to be displayed, and then also the value of the variable. So you need to use two join blocks. So now you can do activity 8. Activity 8 is actually just recreate this exact program. So make sure that you watch the video that will show you how to join the blocks. This is the name of the video. Run the program a number of times. Use different names. Don't just only use Katlego. Use any other name. And don't only use 3. Use 6 and 5 and 20. And see that every time you run the program, you'll get different output because you gave different input. I want you to be very sure that you understand what is the use of variables. The content of a variable varies every time you run the program, and you need to write the instructions using variables to tell the computer how to do the calculations. Okay, try activity 8 now, and then you continue with the self-study program.